highly anticipated AEW Fight Forever is finally out, and I had a chance to check it out on the Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S. As a lifelong wrestling game enthusiast dating all the way back to the Nintendo 64 days, I couldn't wait to dive into this game and see if it could possibly live up to the hype surrounding it. If nothing else, Fight Forever is a fresh start for wrestling games. Developed by Ukes, who have a ton of history making the WWE SmackDown games, we're witnessing the start of a brand new wrestling game franchise. Many are saying that this could be the next WWF No Mercy, a game that has a strong cult following, myself included. A lot of wrestling games have promised that, but few have delivered. Let's find out if this is a game that's actually going to inspire us to fight forever, or maybe just fight for a few weeks until the hype dies down. AEW Fight Forever offers stylized character models that capture the essence of each wrestler. It doesn't aim for the realism that the WWE 2K games go for. Everyone is faithfully recreated here, from their tattoos and facial expressions to their outfits. The arenas are beautifully designed, and you have all the iconic AEW events with all the neon lights leading down to the ring, and you even have the smaller indie-style venues. In particular, I love how you can destroy the screen by the entrance ramp and the details of it slowly breaking down each time it gets hit. It's really an awesome detail. I really like the graphical aesthetic they're going for here, and it looks great on both the Xbox Series S and Series X. The game targets 60 frames per second on both consoles, and I haven't seen any stutters or frame rate dips. It runs buttery smooth. The Series S might render at 1440p instead of the 4K of the Series X, but I honestly can't tell without zooming in on the footage. And I think it looks great even on the aging hardware of the Nintendo Switch. One of the only sacrifices here is that the game targets 30 frames per second rather than the 60 FPS target of the newer consoles. Even with the 30 FPS target, I did notice a few stutters and frame rate dips during matches. I don't find them to be too distracting, but I hope they're able to fix this in a patch. As for the graphics, they haven't been downgraded too much other than the resolution. Again, I think the game really looks great. There's no commentary during the matches, which I think is a good thing. I've always found commentary in wrestling games to be boring and repetitive. The sounds of the fight itself and the crowd do a great job of making the matches feel intense. There is music that plays, but you can turn it off if you'd like. The most important question, is it fun to play? And thankfully the answer is yes. The gameplay mechanics in AEW Fight Forever are a breath of fresh air compared to the recent WWE titles. The controls feel smooth and responsive. Strikes and grapples provide a satisfying sense of impact. It feels like you're really doing damage to your opponents. It works pretty similar to No Mercy, but there's separate buttons for punching and kicking, and there's a third for grapple. You can do a strong grapple just like No Mercy by holding the grapple button, which then lets you do stronger moves. The spirit system works a lot like the old Aki classics like WWF No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000. There's a rhythm to it. As you go through the match, you lose momentum as you get beat up, and you gain momentum as you pull off moves successfully. And once you reach the highest level of momentum, you can do your finishing move. The system feels accessible to newcomers, which we all are right now because the game is new. But I also think that with time, people are really going to dive deep into the mechanics and develop strategies. In my time with the game so far, it feels like the engine really has depth to it. In the next couple months, we're definitely going to be learning a lot about the inner workings of the engine here. One feature I was really excited to check out is the Road to Elite mode. It's a story-driven career mode where you can choose either a created wrestler or somebody already on the roster and take them through their first year in AEW. As you go through the weeks, you play through matches, and in between you can choose different activities to boost your stats. For example, you can choose to eat, which increases your health. Is this flirting? You can also choose to go to the gym, but on the other hand, you might get injured if you push yourself too hard. Definitely can't relate to that one. For some reason, your player character is obsessed with taking selfies. No, wait, this has to be flirting. There's even a scrapbook section where you can check out all the selfies that you've taken throughout the season mode. It's so funny, there's like 2 waitresses in the game, and you could be in Washington, D.C. and see the exact same waitress the next week in Texas. AEW Fight Forever is the only game where you're going to see a created version of Stone Cold Steve Austin eating avocado toast for dinner. Yeah, that's really going to fill you up after your workout and right before your fight. One thing I really like about it is that you're not forced to win every match, and the story branches off depending on whether you do or not. In No Mercy story mode, which I think was one of the better ones out there were a few points in the storyline where you did have that level of freedom, but oftentimes you were forced to win the match to continue. On the other hand, in this game, the story doesn't change much if you go through it with multiple characters, which really limits the replay value of the Road to Elite mode. I was hoping it would be more like No Mercy, where you can choose a specific championship title to chase, and the story would differ depending on which one you're going for. As it stands, you can finish the mode once in a few hours. One of my biggest criticisms of this game is the lack of match options. You can do 1-on-1, 2-on-2 matches, you can do 3 or 4-way matches, battle royale, exploding barbed wire deathmatch, you can do a ladder match, an assortment of minigames, and a training mode. Some of the ones that are missing though, there's no cage matches, there's no 3v3, there's no backstage fighting. And that one doesn't make sense. There's already a few areas in the cutscenes for the story mode that they could have used for backstage matches. For example, there's a talk show set, a gym, a press conference stage. They could have let us fight in any of those. The content is already in the game. You also can't have more than 4 wrestlers in a match at once, which is very disappointing. 6 players should have been the minimum. But maybe I'm spoiled by Wrestling Empire's massive 30-person matches. And there are some frustrating limitations for the match types. For example, for the ladder and barbed wire matches, you can only do 1v1. You can play with up to 4 people on the same console, and the game does have online play. Unfortunately, it doesn't have cross-play with other consoles, which feels dated for a game releasing in 2023. The online play does have a ranked mode for those who want to get competitive. And I'm happy to say that you can bring your created wrestlers online to show them off to the world and test their skills. But let me tell you, this is going to be one of those games that really shines when you have your buddies over and they're all trash talking in the same room. This is going to be the game that comes out for parties. One of the things I love about this game is the ability to have intergender matches. You used to be able to do this back in the day with games like No Mercy, but recently the WWE hasn't allowed this in any of their games. In Fight Forever, you can have Chris Statlander beat the living shit out of Chris in color. This also includes being able to play as any of the default women characters or created women characters in the story mode. It might sound like a small thing, but I really hate these kinds of arbitrary limitations in video games. Great job Ukes and AEW for allowing this. Let's talk about the minigames. They're like a blend of Jackbox and Mario Party. They're kind of unique, but I can't see myself playing them more than a few times. I came here for a wrestling game, and I don't know enough about AEW to have any fun answering trivia questions about it. I would have rather they spent the time adding 1 or 2 backstage areas instead. As you can tell, that's a real sore spot for me. One random thing I appreciate is that you can completely customize the controls from the options menu. Not enough games let you do this, and I have to call it out and give credit when I see it. One quick tip, you want to go into the settings and choose the option to quick skip loading screens. I don't know why this is even an option and why it's not the default. I spent so much time waiting for the loading screens to go away before realizing I had to actually press a button to continue. AEW Fight Forever has a huge roster of wrestlers to play as, but to be honest, one of my favorite parts of any wrestling game is the Create a Wrestler mode. Back in the day, I used to go online and print out the formulas for how to create people in WrestleMania 2000, WWF Attitude, and No Mercy. I had a whole binder of wrestlers.
Whole binders full of women.
God, I actually hate it when people edit like that. In this game, you can create a new wrestler and customize their appearance, moveset, and entrances, and you can save up to 100 created wrestlers at a time. But the freedom isn't as extensive as what we see in the WWE 2K games. For example, if you're making a male wrestler, there's less than 20 options for hair. For women, there's only 12 hair options. I'm not even sure why they decided to split up the hair options like that. Hair is hair. Again, for the male wrestlers, there's only 8 face types, and for women, there are only 4. You can change eye color, but you can't adjust anything else on the face, like the mouth or the nose. There's only 8 different types of facial hair for men. There's a few options for masks, face paint, and hats. There's about 30 pants and shorts options, and a bunch more that are filler with different flags on them. You can change the color of some of the items, but a lot of them are locked in and can't be changed at all. Above all else, you can't just put a shirt of any kind on your created wrestlers unless it's one of a small few pre-made full-body outfits. This choice is just weird and frustrating. At the very least, let us wrestle in the outfits that we made in the street clothes section, which has a lot more options for shirts. As of now, that outfit is only used for cutscenes in the story mode. You can't wrestle in it. It's just a little bit disappointing that you can't do something as simple as put a jacket on your character. And the marketing for this game had mentioned that you're able to modify the outfits of the wrestlers in the game. Can each wrestler overall be customized? Yes, custom wrestlers have a lot of freedom in this area, and official wrestlers are within reason of the AEW world. That's technically true, I guess. You can put a t-shirt on over their current outfit. Wow, thanks! It's a far cry from the days of being able to adjust every little thing about each wrestler in No Mercy. And I loved doing that back in the day, going in and updating every wrestler to their current attire and changing every little thing from like an elbow pad to a new glove, but you can't do that here. I spent some time creating some of my favorite wrestlers from the late 90s and early 2000s, but personally, I have the most fun creating celebrities, friends, enemies. The opportunities are endless. But I would love to see more options added to this mode in future updates. You can even customize the arenas. They let you change the color of the mat, the ropes, turnbuckles, and there are even a few options for the stage area. I think this has potential if they add more content. And you can unlock a lot of things with in-game currency, giving you goals to work towards as you play. This includes moves, custom arena parts, and more clothing options for created wrestlers. It looks like the game is going to get a lot of support over the coming months, and I hope it continues beyond that. It seems like their plan is to have this be a game that's supported for at least a couple of years, instead of the WWE 2K model of having a new release every year, and abandoning the previous one. I think it would be really cool to have seasonal outfits for wrestlers, or new clothing you can add to your created wrestlers. If that kind of thing can help pay for continued development of this game, rather than having to abandon it every year for the newest version, that's a trade-off I'm happy to make. As long as there's also effort towards adding free new match types, removing limitations, and fixing bugs. Despite its limitations, AEW Fight Forever is a solid game and a great start to a brand new wrestling game franchise. There are very few modern wrestling games I can say I've had fun with. M. Dickey's Wrestling Empire is incredible. And now I'm adding AEW Fight Forever to the list. It's not perfect and it's not going to be for everyone, but I think you have an idea by now as to whether or not you're going to enjoy this. It delivers on the promise of taking inspiration from games like No Mercy, but with modern touches. I'm really looking forward to seeing what updates come to this game, as well as what the sequels are going to look like years down the line. This game is just the beginning of something special. We have to keep in mind that this is a brand new franchise. They don't have years of games to build off of, and it's only going to get better from here. But let me put it this way. Think about the titles that Aki developed on the Nintendo 64. WCW vs. NWO World Tour came out first in 1997, and it was a solid game in its own right, but it brought us the even better WCW vs. NWO Revenge the next year with more features and polish. Then we got WWF WrestleMania 2000, which gave us even more. Lastly, we got WWF No Mercy, which was the pinnacle of the games that Aki developed on the Nintendo 64. We have to keep in mind they didn't start with No Mercy, it took them years to get there. I think AEW Fight Forever is the world tour of what's eventually going to become the No Mercy for a new generation. But in the meantime, I'm having a blast with this collaboration between AEW and Yuke's. I really can't wait to see all of you online, and I'd love to hear what you think about this game in the comments below.